crime side, the New York Times side. Staying alive was no job, had second hands. Moms bounced on old men. So then we moved to Shaolin Land. A young youth, you're rocking the go-to. Low goose.
I often find myself thinking about horror. In the many ways it's underrepresented in a lot of media, but none so tragically as animation. I believe animation is one of the best mediums for the genre to truly take flight, for within the realms of animation, there are truly no limits. Because horror animation feels so fleeting in this day and age, I often turn to the darker, dirtier, and far more disturbing films of the 80s and 90s. And how I discovered that horror was a genre that thrived in the older OVA days. If you have never heard the term OVA, it stands for Original Video Animation. It basically means it was sold straight to home video, never airing on TV or in theaters, though in some cases they would be re-aired there. If you need a more Western idea, think something like a straight-to-DVD Disney movie, though made with a lot more effort and a lot more weirdness. You see, OVAs weren't made like other anime. For one thing, they were short, meaning budgets didn't have to be stretched so much. And with the rising wealth of Japan, they were producing these by the hundreds, in just about any genre or niche you could name. It was truly a time of unbridled creativity, and when you give a lot of money to animation professionals, you're going to get something strange. And so I fell into the hole of straight-to-video horror, and I found some real standout titles. Pet Shop of Horrors, Wicked City, and the list goes on. But not too long ago, I found an OVA that fascinated me. It intrigued me. And most of all, it made me very uncomfortable. And it's kind of hard to explain why, but today I want to spend some time talking about this OVA, about the uncanny horror of Monogatari Hikiko. The full name of this OVA is Toshi Densetsu Monogatari Hikiko, which translates to Hikiko, Urban Legend Story. And that's exactly what this is. The story goes as follows. Hikiko was a young girl who was abused by her family, deforming her, which led to bullying at school. Her only source of relief in this harsh life was a small kitten she took care of. However, one day, her bullies find the cat and tie its neck to a car. And, protecting the kitten, Hikiko covers it with her own body, leading to her death. Several days later, her bullies are found dead, badly bruised and bloody. Hikiko's spirit had turned vengeful, and now she roams, catching evil girls and boys and dragging them behind her until they breathe their last. It's a pretty gruesome story, and it's known pretty well, even receiving movies and an appearance in Mob Psycho. And this OVA pretty much follows it to a T, except this story follows what seems to be the birth of a new Hikiko, seeing how the girl in this story goes through the exact same treatment but has a different name. We also experience it from the eyes of a young boy named Satoshi. He's also the one you're going to be seeing scared all of the time, but with good reason. It's eerie following Satoshi. Everything around him seems quiet, empty. I don't think you see his parents once the entire video. So when these supernatural occurrences start to happen, it breaks the almost unnerving shell of tranquility that surrounds Satoshi and replaces it with pure fear. And a lot of this fear comes from the bizarre look of this OVA. Look, I wouldn't blame you if you thought this looks bad. Depending on the scene, I might agree with you. But, to me, this evokes a very specific style that I can only equate to PS2 horror. Think something like Silent Hill or Resident Evil. This entire video feels like you're watching a let's play of a lost video game. And I think that only adds to the fear. Watching it makes you think back to your childhood and wonder, didn't I play this before? Or maybe I saw a commercial for it. The air of mystery surrounding it only makes that eerie feeling worse. The backgrounds feel realistic, too realistic, almost like simulations, and the models used for the characters are almost right. They're almost human, but not quite. They don't move right. They don't talk right. They aren't right. But it's just enough that if you squint, they almost seem real. And that's the uncanny valley. When people see things that are nearly identical to humans, but with one flaw, our brains go into fight or flight. And it's those exact vibes that this movie radiates. It gets into your skin. The jerky movements, the nasty sound design of Hikiko gurgling, and the ever-nagging fact that this all could have been avoided. Something I've realized about a lot of Japanese horror is that oftentimes, whatever tragedy befalls the characters, it was always something that could have been prevented. Don't follow that sound. Obey the rules of the land. Listen to your parents. And the same goes for Hikiko's story. Everyone sat back as she suffered. Her teachers, her classmates, even Satoshi, who was probably the closest thing she had ever had to a friend, had a moment where it seemed he was ready to toss her aside too. All of these people mistreated Hikiko. And as Hikiko learned all too well from her parents, bad behavior requires discipline. Toshi Densetsu Monogatari Hikiko is a somber story. One that leaves you melancholy and empathetic. The unique animation style, I feel, that while dated, still has a unique style that I have yet to see duplicated. I went in expecting a fun, spooky time, and while I did get that, I was also left with a feeling of sadness. Why do people do the things they do? Isn't there already enough sadness in the world? Why cause more pain to someone who can't even fight back? Maybe this story will convince a bully out there that his actions might be wrong, and if he continues doing them, he'll experience a far more permanent pain.